Welcome back to Unmuted Nation. I'm Alex Haynes, and this is night number 2 that we are live and having conversations surrounding Black people. So Unmuted Nation is usually live at 1 p.m. on Boss FM. If you're not familiar with Boss FM, you can download the Boss FM app from your app store, Android, iPhone. It's available for download. It's a free app. You want to do that and catch my show every day at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 10 a.m. Central. The conversations are continuing. We had the funeral of George Floyd today. He was laid to rest. All know that story. The country in so many ways is in mourning and in pain, and lots of conversations about race are happening in so many different ways. In your circle, my circle, in your Zoom calls, and in your work chats. And so navigating those conversations is a little difficult. And so that right now there's a spotlight on Black people. And so I don't assume or think that there should be any type of singular Black agenda. We are not monolithic people. We will never all think the same, and we are grouped that way. The Black experience is definitely monolithic in the United States. And so now with all of this being thrown at us, I think it's time, and we talked about this yesterday, we'll talk about it today, and we will be here for the next hour having a conversation, hoping to start conversation in your community, in your family, and you're at the brunch table. For those of you that are, cities are back open and you're doing what you probably should be doing, but whatever. Have these conversations, not just here, have the conversation with us. We'll take your feedback. I have more guests joining us today from Boss FM. Tiff Linnell is joining me, and I'm happy that she's here. Hey, Tiff. She's actually launching a show, not really similar to mine, but a show, and one of the guests was here. He'll be back. A show similar, well, on the same network. We're not the same, but she has a valid viewpoint. It's always good to hear her voice. And based on what's going on in the country right now, specifically Georgia and Nevada and South Carolina today had primaries and voting for the general election. Lots of chatter on the internet today, and people that were very frustrated about what's going on in their cities, what's going on in their state, got to the polls today. And I mean, let's be honest. Prior to everything that's been going on with us and our community, it's always taken a long time to vote in this country. There's always been some sort of oppression or suppression towards Black people in precincts and things like that. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Confederate monuments are coming down everywhere, and then some cities want them to stay up. And we'll talk about some cities here in this country that are just against, no matter what you say, whether you're white, Black, against it. Now you're finally vocal about these oppressive statues and really these treasonous monuments that are erected in our cities in the country. People want them down, and some people want them to remain up. We'll talk about that. And I'm trying to hit the highlights, right? Because there may be a part of this conversation that you don't want any part of, but there may be a part that you want to stick around from. And so when we do our show at 1 p.m., usually we publish the list every day. And so people know what the conversation is going to be about an hour before the show every day. Tonight, we'll talk voter suppression, the Black agenda. But first, I want to hit something. And Tiff, you and I have had offline dialogues about this. Mm-hmm. One thing that we noticed about our community that is it's very interesting to me. You don't find it everywhere. You don't find it in every community. But in the Black community, celebrities are often looked at as mouthpieces and leaders. I can't really explain why that is. I'm not going to drop any intentionally. I may drop some. I'm going to just be honest. I may let things fall out of my mouth, and that's just what it is. That's how I roll. If you know anything about this mouth, that's what happens. But there are certain people that I don't want speaking on behalf of me. Just because you have a platform, and this extends over to influencers, right? People that are only popular because they got an Instagram platform or a Twitter platform, and they have these loud mouths. They're very loud at what they do. Or they're very popular, but they are in no place to lead us. The great Malcolm X had a lot to say about leaders, Black leaders being celebrities. Let's play this clip.
I just told you a little while ago, these leaders that they call leaders, this included Lena Horne, this included Dick Gregory, and this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community, and have been made celebrities and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear.
So Malcolm X said it better than I could say it. Ironically enough, while that clip was playing, and he referenced, and this is over 40 years ago that this aired, just about celebrities being black leaders when in so many ways they aren't. The ironic thing about that is as we played that clip, I just got 3 text messages telling me that a certain celebrity is on every channel right now. So some of you are going to watch this later. You see that we're on now, and you're going to come back and watch this, and this is going to hit home because what we're talking about right now is relevant to that. There are certain celebrities right now leading a conversation that they have no business leading. They haven't been a part of any of these movements, and while they may have some sort of notoriety in their community, in our communities, they've had platforms for a long time. Why are they just now standing up? Tiff, your thoughts on this before we move past it?
Can you see my face?
I see it.
Fantastic. That says everything that I feel. I think that, you know, we want to thank people for the support of all of the movements that we have actually been doing and living for years now. However, I think I said to you earlier today, I'm really tired of lip service. And unless you are willing to put action behind the service that your lips have been serving, I really don't want to hear it. You can keep your...
Now, listen to me. When you're right, you're right. And one thing about lip service, and people have been, and I love a good dialogue, right? I'm going to share my opinion. I'm going to give my opinion. And I'm also going to stand in my truth. And so for a long, years at this point, I can't, like I was just telling the team right before we went live today, I came in across a show that I did in 2008 about police brutality. Me on a platform talking about this same thing that we are talking about right now in the year 2020. There's absolutely no reason that you would have a platform like this for a community like this and not use it, not utilize it. So it's a little frustrating to me when people give us lip service or parts of our community say things like, oh, well, they're finally acknowledging. I'm past acknowledgement. And yesterday, I was so much calmer about it because I wanted to have the conversation. I wanted to be received in a way that people can receive and understand what we're saying. But when people see my frustration, or when you see me, I've been in, I wouldn't say a dark place, but a strange place over the last now 15 days that I can't come out of, because every day I wake up and think about Black life. And I've always thought like that. That's something that is unique to the Black experience. You have to think about if you're coming home, what you say while you're out, what you're doing while you're out, how you respond to certain people, how you respond to perceived authority figures. That's something that you have to think about all the time. Now that we see that in 2020, that you can be killed, lynched, openly lynched, while people are watching on video for almost 10 minutes in the city in America, and people want to know why we're outraged. Or people from our own community are out here discrediting the fact that this person was a human being and not really taking it seriously because he wasn't the model human being that they would have wanted him to be. Nobody is the model human being that you want them to be, but everybody in this country that is due these rights should have these rights. And so when it comes to speaking about what's going to change, I'm at the point where I don't want to hear any more about police training. Every time this has happened, every time police departments come out and say we're going to advocate for more training, we're going to have more sensitivity training, we're going to send them into the Black communities, all the training is doing, from my perspective, is teaching them how to continue to kill us. That's like what's happening over and over again. And every time there's training, another week, there's another killing. And this happens over and over and over again. So now people are at a certain place that enough is enough. Too much is too much. And it's just too damn much at this point. We really can't take it anymore. So when it comes to pacification, I can't be pacified by you showing that you now hear me for the first time, because I need you to do more than hear me. I need you to move with me. I need you to move on behalf of me. And until you're ready to do that, it is my duty to make you uncomfortable. Let me breathe for a second. But that's just where I am.
I am actually right there with you. I don't really care about your discomfort at this point because I have been uncomfortable in this country as a Black female for all of my life. I have dealt with having police pull up behind me and I'm scared. I have dealt with being followed in stores. I have dealt with being called the N-word since I was actually in kinder care. So I really don't care about anyone's comfort at this point. You can really miss me with that. And again, unless you are putting some action behind your lip service, you can keep your acknowledgement, you can keep your apology, you can keep all of that.
So hold on. So are you saying that the kente cloth on the House floor was not enough? No, and I'm asking you a genuine question, because not from one, not from two, not from three people, me and my frustration with that. Do I accept the fact that they're trying? Yes. Am I going to praise you for trying to do something that you should have been doing in my whole life? Not just the whole life of the Black existence, but I can't give you any praise for something that you should have been doing. I'm not out here praising white people because they finally understand the plight of the Black person. I'm just not doing that. Because we've been telling you over and over and over.
My mom used to say when I would get good grades in school, I'm not going to reward you for something you should be doing anyway. You should be getting good grades. You should not be a racist. You should be asking how you can help your fellow brother or sister, LGBTQ or otherwise. You should be doing that. You should be treating each other like they are human beings. So, I mean, why should I commend you for doing what you should be doing, which is treating us all like we are humans and stop killing us, period. If you want us to be happy with, any action that's being taken, stop killing us. We're not stopping until you stop killing us, period. That it just is what it is.
So for those that are saying, okay, we hear you. We hear you. We understand your frustration. We understand your plight. We hear you. Aside from acknowledging, I don't know what else to do.
One, and I know we'll get into this later, but vote. I finally, for the first time, saw more people that were not Black expressing frustration with voter suppression today. And that's a whole different conversation. So we can do that. We can push for legislation and policy change. We can do more than just doing lip service on social media. That's all fine and good. But let's hold these organizations. Let's hold these leadership. Let's hold our churches. Let's hold our communities. Let's hold our neighbors. Let's hold our neighborhoods. Let's hold all of our family members. Talk to your racist auntie and uncle. Talk to your racist grandparent. Talk to your neighbor that still got a Trump sign in their yard or a bumper sticker on their car, and have conversations so that we can really start to make some changes. Because until we do that, until we have policy changes like the Amy Cooper bill in New York, until we start seeing that, until we start seeing the Eric Garner anti-chokehold ban, until we start doing that, then we're not really doing anything. We're not really making any movement. Hold everybody's feet masses to the fire so we can make some real change if you don't do anything else. So,
okay. I think people are in a couple places, right? I think that there is a lot of acknowledgement. And so, again, for people that think I'm ungrateful, a few people called me insufferable yesterday because I just like, oh, Alex, you're beating that dead horse. Well, I'm also beating it on your behalf because you won't beat it and you're okay with the status quo. And I'm just not for your life, not for any Black life, because I don't think that you should just have to deal with what we're dealt with when everybody else is out here thriving and doing what the hell they want to do. So that's that. People are acknowledging what they want to acknowledge. In some ways, they're not. It comes down to a couple of changes, right? We're calling from, and we talked about this on the show yesterday, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I don't think defund, and Jeff was here yesterday, he said defunding the police that's a loss. Like, why are we even using that strategy? We should be using another word. But I will offer this, and I offered this yesterday as well. we don't think that it's possible to defund the police because we've always known the police. And when I say we, I include me. Like, okay, I don't want you beating me, and I don't want you attacking me. But in some instances, I believe that this is embedded in me. I'm taught to believe that the police are here to keep me safe. They are here to protect and serve. That's literally like, isn't that like written on every police precinct everywhere? So I think, like, when I think about the police, though, I don't ever think that they protect and serve. I don't ever feel protected or served. That's a better way of saying that. But I think it's time for us to talk about strategies, right? And so we got that off our chest. I think we both are just very passionate about this at this point. And it's a conversation that, like, context. In addition to this show, I spend my days running Black media. So I am involved and embedded in understanding Black stories to the core. So stories that may apply to me, may not apply to me, but they're Black in nature, urban in nature. And so protecting these communities, informing these communities, that's where I spend my days. So I'm very passionate at this point. And one thing that I would like to offer, in a perspective and a conversation that I want to further, I want people to start having these conversations. We need to talk about solutions. Because right now, what's happening, and if these situations aren't waking you up, and I got some criticism because I put out a tweet this evening. I was off Twitter all day, but what I said was, I'm surprised that so many people are surprised by the voter suppression that's happening in Georgia today. We've been telling you about this voter suppression for 2 years, and actually, I've been telling you about voter suppression since I could vote in Georgia, but it's been on the extreme for the last 2 years. So today, there's a myriad of things, right? Some people are like, you can't call everything that happened suppression. Everything, Georgians usually don't show up in the numbers they were showing up today, so they weren't ready. I think that the state was ready. Look at this. This is Georgia today. People waiting in line on average for over 2.5 hours. Over 2.5 hours to vote. Obviously, some people waiting much longer than that. Some people in and out throughout the day. But this is ridiculous. And I'm not going to say that I haven't stood in a long line in Georgia. I think not the first time I voted for Barack Obama, but the second time I went to vote, I was probably there for like an hour and a half. The first time, I was literally in and out. And so sometimes it's literally about the area that you live in. Granted, the first time, I think I lived in a predominantly white area, and I was really voting in a place that there was tons of access to the polls. The second time, I lived in a more urban area, and I voted off of Bankhead in Atlanta. And if you know anything about Bankhead, you know who was there before it was called West Midtown. So my precinct was really in a place that, it took me over an hour and a half, almost 2 hours to vote. So I think that's been the Black experience for so long. Some people are skeptical to call this voter suppression because that's like this has always been my experience. But I want to talk about it specifically, Tiff. When we talk about the voter suppression in Georgia and why it's been such a hot button topic, walk us through what happened with the Governor Brian Kemp there just 2 years ago.
So November 2018, Brian Kemp stole an election. He did all of the voter suppression tactics. First of all, we called for his resignation or for him to step down before the election actually took place, because he was serving as Secretary of State at the time, which oversees the elections in the state. So he was running for governor while also managing the gubernatorial race. So we asked him to step down. He didn't. So then he was managing basically overseeing all of the elections, right? All of the elections processes and all of that. So he had plenty of ways that he could do voter suppression. Back then it was, the machines are here, but the power plugs aren't. There's only 2 machines in this very large district. This voting location was moved to this location. So different things. So there were long lines. People were standing in lines for 4, 5, and 6 hours trying to vote, having to leave, go back to work, especially on the south side and west side of Atlanta. You have people who are essential workers, what everyone's calling now essential workers. They've been essential, but that's a whole other story. But people had to get back to work. So he stole the election. Stacey Abrams never really conceded. She just kind of stepped to the side because
when you say stole the election, because people hear that and they're like, well, how do you know he stole it? walk us through, because a lot of people don't understand, was Brian Kemp was the previous Secretary of State for Georgia.
Right.
And as the Secretary of State,
he did
not resign.
He did
not recuse himself.
He did not.
The Secretary of State oversees the election. So he was running in an election that he was overseeing. From what I recall about that situation, there were also a number of ballots that started to disappear, precincts that started to close. A number of things were happening.
Voter purging.
With him refusing to leave and just take himself out of the electoral process.
So they've done that again. So back in 2018, they were purging voter registrations for the simple of things and called it cleaning the rolls. They were basically, if you hadn't voted in one or two primaries, they were saying, oh, you're inactive, and they would remove you from the voter registration. You had to re-register, but they weren't notifying voters that they were doing this. So we had hundreds of thousands of and I'm not exaggerating, of voter registrations purged from the roll before any voting ever happened. So you could get to the poll and they would say, oh, well, we don't have you listed, or, oh, your address doesn't match, or, oh, your name is misspelled. And then they would say, you have to fill out a provisional ballot. Well, locations were then running out of provisional ballots. So they were giving them, oh, I only have 3 more, so I'm gonna give one of you, but there's 10 people left who need one. Or people were sending in absentee ballots, which happened this time. There were absentee ballots so in my county, we don't have a mayor, we have a CEO. They were reporting that absentee ballots were being lost and asking for investigations. Didn't happen, nothing was done about that. So that's been happening since 2018, and it happened again today. Now, I don't know if you're ready for me to fast forward to what happened today.
Yeah, go ahead.
So now we have Kemp's homie in the governor's office, Brad Raffensperger. He had one job. Not only did he have one job, you had extra time to plan, because everybody's asses have been at home for COVID. So you had plenty of time to plan. We got these new machines, new system. There's a new process where after you vote, now you print out your paper ballot, you scan it into this machine to secure the vote. But even though I didn't have problems last week, so I did early voting last week because I just had a feeling and I wanted to be available today if I needed to go out and do something. So I went out last week. It took me maybe 10 minutes. I was in and out. The machines worked. Everything was fine. All of a sudden today, there's broken machines that didn't show up, power plugs that weren't there, the wrong receipt paper was in the machine, voting location closed.
I don't want to cut you off, but
consolidated.
Two things I want to say here, right? So there's room for margin of error, and I'm playing devil's advocate, even though I know what's up, but I'm playing the other side. There's room for there's a margin of error that we can expect. On one side, when you early vote, there's less precincts available, so they're staffed adequately enough to expect the small number of people that are going to early vote. Because this was a election day, they should have been overstaffed. There should not have been a number of issues, no power plugs, no receipt paper, all of these things that were happening, and people waiting for over 2 hours. I think when I was in the public sector working like that, most companies would give you like 2 hours off, or some companies don't give you any time at all. So you have to figure it out when you get off of work. With these mishaps, what were the solutions that they provided in these areas, or were there any solutions in these areas when there were no public power plugs or no receipt paper, or they asked them to, like, how would you be asked to trust a paper ballot in a state like Georgia?
So I heard one location, they were instructed to give only provisional ballots, but then again, you would run out of provisional ballots. So first thing this morning, I started trying to call the Georgia Secretary of State, calling on Fair Fight Action, which is an organization that is supposed to be helping with voter suppression. I was calling the voter protection hotline. I was sharing the numbers, doing all of that. People were still waiting in line for 2, 3, 4 hours. One location, all of the locations were supposed to open at 7 a.m. Some weren't actually opening until 8, 9, 10 a.m. And then they would open and only 2 of the 4 machines were working. Someone else told me that 2 poll workers quit on site. Someone else told me that they went out to the north side of Georgia, no lines, no issues. But when you come to the south side, people have water, snacks, lawn chairs, because like you said earlier, this is an expected issue in our area. So it's not just now, it's not just in 2018. This is there's a history of issues in Black and Brown communities when it comes
Absolutely. So I want to bring Gerald into this conversation, because one thing that I want to know, like, I think understanding that experience, understanding how valid that experience is, and understanding that it doesn't just happen in Georgia, I think that like I said, I want to talk strategy. So what can we do? Because this was the practice, this was the scrimmage before the Royal Rumble that's going to happen in November. What can we do to ensure? And like you said, if they're trying to suppress you, they will succeed. That's like, I mean, at least they will try. They will go down fighting to succeed. But what can we do? Like, as you were speaking, some of the things that started to come to my mind, maybe we start to encourage early voting, or maybe we get more aggressive. And I think what I really think here, and I may be way off, I think that people that have not traditionally been involved in this kind of stuff need to get involved. Like, do not wait on your local mayor or the person in your family that you rely on for everything. If you are that person that texts somebody this week or today and ask them, where should I vote? I want you to dedicate some time in learning about what you should do so that you can educate your circle. Not just educate your circle, but bring them up to speed so that you can be prepared. So they can't suppress you if you are overly prepared. If you know how to call and verify to ensure that you are registered and that your polling place is going to be intact, and you know how to do these things, and you're prepared to do these things. And Tim, I'm just throwing things out there, Gerald. I don't know if you have thoughts on how we get ahead of the problem.
Ooh, do I have any ideas? You know what? I don't really know, because I feel like a lot of things are broken. I think we need to, just from a Black standpoint, figure out what we want and what it looks like, because we can't want a single goal where we have our important people telling people to do the opposite. Like Diddy was an idiot. And the message that he was pushing forward for people that actually listen to him it creates a dangerous narrative. So I just feel like we need to create a common goal and a common message that I think we all can go for too, because I think people are so divided.
I don't I'm not in the interrupting business tonight, but I think that this is a viable conversation, right? And what I do know is that while people are listening to the celebrities right now, they're going to get done. They're going to see that this was live. They're going to watch this. They're going to listen to it. They're going to listen to it on Boss FM tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, whenever they listen. And I want to counter that, because, and my team is probably cackling, because right before we went live, I brought up that same example of Diddy, like, sounded like a complete asshat. Mm-hmm. But there is a generation of people that listen to, and I think this is where we have to make sure we're able to connect. There's this generation of people that is only listening to celebrities. Aside from what I think that we may even show that again. There is a this is asinine. I think that, but prior to us coming on the air today, the comment was shared with me that him saying that forced Joe Biden to release the Black agenda. And so there is a belief in some people that our celebrities are out here working on our behalf to get things. Now, I think that there's room for critique there, right? This person may be completely on point. I would definitely just put myself out on a limb and say that Joe Biden did not release a Black agenda because Diddy said he was going to withhold the Black vote. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that that's not how that went down. However, I have to respect that train of thought, because everybody is not immersed in this like I am. Everybody is not having these conversations day in and day out and trying to strategize. So my question to two great minds: what is the strategy that we use to do better?
We as the actual Black delegation, or we
Yeah,
as
yeah,
the
yeah.
celebrities
We,
speaking?
you, we,
Oh,
you. What
I
like
could.
what do we do?
I mean, I'm loud, but I try to be loud and right, and not loud and wrong, and loud and trying speaking from an experience that I haven't lived or haven't lived in a long time, maybe. But I'm also not anywhere near wealthy. I live in the neighborhoods that experience voter suppression. I talk to the people who are experiencing it today. I try to, see what needs to be done, hold organizations to the fire. I like I said before, I said this on plenty of shows. If you can't do anything else, hold your representatives responsible. This election in Georgia today was important because it was not just who do you think you're going to vote for president, which is a whole other situation. But
Right.
it was voting for sheriffs. It was voting for representatives. It was voting
No,
for senators. It was
and
voting
so
for
I
local
hear
sheriffs.
you. I hear you saying I'm having these conversations. How do we have them with people that have never voted or that don't vote? And I think like where you're going with these elections, that these other elections, it's not just about getting who's in office right now out. It's not just about that, but it's literally about your streets are screwed up and you drive down I don't ever plan to do that, but you're driving down streets with potholes and you're wondering why, like, oh, it's just ghetto, bro. I just live in the good, it's the hood, it's always gonna be like this. It's not. Vote that asshole out. Vote them out. Like, they don't see you coming. And like when I started telling people, and I tell younger people to do aggressive things that I would do. Take, especially you at home right now, maybe you lost your job or you're working from home. Take your happy ass up to the mayor's office, walk in there and say that you want to talk to somebody.
They have to talk to you. They have to.
Pay
You are a
their
constituent. They have to talk to you. And if they don't, I messaged, called, tweeted everybody today. All of the local news organizations.
I wish we had the video. We don't have it. But these people work for you.
Period.
You pay their salary, you keep their lights on, you keep them eating. They are elected by you. And so even I had a conversation with my sister and she was surprised that she got her stimulus check. I'm like, listen, you are a grown adult in America. You have rights and that is yours. You were eligible. Like, and so many people get stuck in the, well, I'm just a kid, or I'm not grown. You are grown, Black talk. Grown. You definitely are, but you have to have those conversations. So like, go up there. And we don't have the video. There was a woman that took her bullhorn to the front of Keisha Lance Bottom's house and shouted at Keisha over, Keisha, I know you in there. And Keisha was playing with the blinds. If we had it, I would play it, because I told my social media I'm not gonna post it because some people are just really salty with my accountability that I'm requiring of Keisha. Because yes, I'm frustrated. It's not dislike. It's not disdain. It's not. I don't have to like or hate Keisha. I don't either. She needs to be accountable. You don't get up in front of the blackest city in America and call them an embarrassment for expressing their anger and pain that this keeps happening to Black people. There's a reason why conservative media is going crazy over Keisha. They are gushing over Keisha. Like, every comment that I read about Keisha Bottoms, every white woman named Kay and Ann is like, I just love that mayor in Atlanta. I just love her, Keisha Lance Bottoms. Oh my goodness, I just love Keisha. She's chastising those people. They're just out here tearing up CNN.
But we know that's not what she means, though.
But listen, there is a posture that you have to have. Like, we can grandstand. The time for grandstanding is over. Like, why are we just okay with acknowledgement? And I feel like that is we will stay in this place. They will continue to treat us as subservient and less than when we continue to allow them to do that. So if I come out and tell you, Black person, now you shouldn't be so upset, they didn't kill you. Like, because that's essentially what you're saying. Like, let's calm it down. They didn't kill you. But they could.
Absolutely.
And that's why people are angry. Like, people, and I don't know, we may have it. I was 5 years ago, 5 years ago, this came up, and everyone got our Facebook memories. This came up in my Facebook memories yesterday. 5 years ago, I am on Facebook, probably just fresh off of my morning show at the time, upset about a situation that happened in Texas. And I alluded to it on the show yesterday. We have the graphic now, and I don't know if they can pull it, but this happened in Texas. If you see, I guess on the right side of your screen, I don't know, everything's flipped from where I am. There's a police officer with his knee on top of a black girl. This is 5 years ago. 5 years ago in this America, this was happening. 5 years ago in this America, we were having this conversation. 5 years ago in this America, I was asking people to share this. Get serious about this. They are after us. Next to that picture in the same state, police officers recovered weapons. These children were assaulted by the police because they were at a pool party and a little bit too loud for what we now call Karens. And so here we are 5 years later, having the same conversation, and Alex, you are insufferable because you just keep complaining about this over and over and over again. What's insufferable is me seeing black bodies under attack over and over again. That is insufferable. That is what I can't stop talking about this. I can't just let it I just can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I can't sit here and be happy about you and happy with you and talk about what the next celebrity is doing when I don't give a damn, because they're still going to kill you. Like, why are you dancing with the police officer when you get up tomorrow? They will forget that they were out doing the electric slide with you in the Atlanta streets and still perceive you as a threat until we change the system. And that's what I'm saying, Gerald. I know you were like, she had to say that. She didn't have to say that.
No. That's not what I was getting at. I just think that my feelings about this are so scattered. I just feel as if a lot of people have been speaking from a place of emotion, and I think I tuned out because I think a lot of people are very angry, and I get it. And I would try to keep my vibes very different for my health and otherwise, and so where there are people like you who are angry, I feel like you're angry enough for me, and I just sit there and I find other ways because I'm not necessarily the loud one at the moment. But I feel like when I saw her talk for the moment that I did, I just feel like she had it and she didn't know what to do. And so I give her that amount of grace that while it might not have been the best message, I do understand in that space, while that might have been hard to say something that made everybody happy. I don't feel the type of way. I don't know. When it comes to police officers, especially, I don't think I've told Tiffany, but I think I've told you, I feel totally different because of my brother being an officer 5 minutes away from here. It's the narrative is really hard for me to accept overall when I do know a lot of great cops. So when you say you get frustrated seeing that, like, I understand what you're trying to say, but I love it because I'm loving that somebody has chosen to love my brother and not hold the fact that his job is not who he is. He's not a sellout. There are some people who are actually here that want to serve and protect. So I've been very quiet because, like I said, people are being very emotional now. I want to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to do it so that emotions don't destroy some of the relationships that we have, because I would hate for this narrative, because everybody's so angry, to destroy the bridges that we have with people like my brother or people that I know that aren't of color, that are officers or any other thing. I really want us all to get along, and I want us to be great. I don't even know how to say this in the right way or in a way that's intelligible, because like, your anger is valid and I get it. But then I also see people who are angry at people who aren't as angry as them. But I think that Tiff said it best, and she didn't even mean it that she was saying that, where if my experience isn't yours, how can you be mad for me not reacting the way that you would?
Tiff, your thoughts?
I know quite a few officers as well. So I hear what Gerald is saying and agree, actually. It is very hard to find the balance between supporting those who are there to protect and serve for us and for our communities, and picking out the bad apples when it seems like the bad apples are outweighing those who are good. And so there's a fine balance between those. And I hope that we don't attack those who are the good ones. It's just hard to do that though when, you know, there was another young man that was just shot. His girlfriend was shot, 40 rounds shot into the car, Eric Salgado. And when you see story after story, and it's just like, okay, enough is enough. You know, enough is enough. So it's hard. You know, Alex, you said, and we talk every day, of course, but you mentioned it's hard waking up every morning. Every morning I wake up and it takes everything in me to get out of bed and fight to see another day and fight to live another day and fight this fight another day. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. It's
and that's accurate. That feeling it's been rougher over the last 15 days. It's been rougher. I think my frustration less with individual officers. I in no way am insinuating that they should all be canceled or they should all be held responsible. But somebody has to be responsible for the fact that there is a system that is not broken, a system that was designed against Black bodies. This system that we have today was created to police Black bodies. The police system in America was created to police runaway slaves. That's literally where it came from. So this entire system is still here. There is an implicit bias that is not just in police departments, which is why you're starting to see companies that should have acknowledged this because they have Black leaders and members of their staffs. And they have, some of these people have Black children and they're influential in these companies, and they're just now starting to acknowledge that there's an implicit bias. Educators will tell you that a Black child that's 6 years old and a white child that's 6 years old can have the same behavioral problems, and only one of them is going to be labeled a behavior problem. Yep. That problem right there is the problem that we have to attack. Because if the attack starts on the Black body at 6 years old, by the time the child is 16, and I shared this with some people last week, by the time a child is 5 years old, they have experienced some form of racism, a Black child, on average. By the time they're in third grade, they've been lodged, a racial slur has been lodged towards them. Either some other child has picked it up, or some out-of-control adult has said it to somebody in third grade. By sixth grade, somebody has done, and these are average numbers. I'm not saying that this has happened to everybody. So if this is not your experience, thank God. But by ninth grade, 10th grade, Black bodies are preparing themselves to deal with a world that is biased towards them.
So my question to you would be, where is the balance? Because see, like I said, I understand your anger. I understand what everybody's feeling right now. But what I've seen that's very frustrating, because I have you see me on Facebook. I don't post anything about any of this, but I think there's a disconnect between people who are angry because stuff has happened like that to them, and there are people who don't know what to do because it's never happened to them. Like they had a BuzzFeed "How privileged are you?" quiz, and some of the things you were saying. I'm like, I never dealt with that. And I'm from the school where the people who have done me the worst and held me back and are the people that look like me. And the people who have always pushed me forward and helped me are the people who are Caucasian or have less melanin, I guess, however you would like to say it.
And see, so, my ask, I understand that experience. My ask for people that is your experience is to understand the experience of people that have not had that. Because, go ahead.
But I was about to say, but in that same vein, even though my brother's a cop, we have the same dad. So I grew up in the hood. Like I also, like somebody very close to me before people really getting on this, like years ago, somebody very close to my family was shot 37 times by the cops and attacked by police dogs. When it at a standoff that didn't even need to be what it was. So I get it. But where we have people like you, Alex, and Tiffany, who are intelligible, there are some people who are just so angry where we're going to dismantle like a cause and attack people because they don't understand. Because I see people all the time, like they don't understand that experience, and when they express that, they get yelled at. Oh, well, we don't need you. You don't count, or you're a sellout. I'm like, no, some people just never ever experienced it, and I think that it's your duty to educate somebody. This is why they may feel that way, but I think in that same in that same space, you need to respect people for not necessarily having that struggle. I think it's a place for everybody to learn, and I don't think that some people are willing
I agree.
to.
And I would say that probably in those scenarios, what's most frustrating for those of us that have dealt with it is the whataboutism, right? I understand it not being your experience. I understand you not having that experience. But you saying, what about Black? When, yeah, of course, Black people, and I say this often, and we have to say it on this show, this platform is important. Black people cannot be inherently racist because they won't have the ability to be superior over anybody. That's what racism is. When you are superior and you use that superiority to sway things because of race. But Black people can be bigots. So Black people like to share their moments of bigotry or prejudice when we are talking about supremacy. And I think that they're not the same thing. So I understand. I want you to be clear, because I get where you're coming from, and I get that it's not your experience. And if you don't feel like you should speak on it, I don't think you should. I think that the whataboutism is nothing but justification to a supremacist. Because once you say, well, Black people have done this to me too. Well, there are bigots in every race. There are prejudiced people in every race. But you are doing this to me because you feel that you are superior. The system has taught you that you are superior. And that knowledge of your privilege and superiority is something that you carry with you. Tiff says something often. And I was like, girl, stop saying that. Stop saying this. She's like, if I could just have the confidence of a middle-class, middle-aged white man.
I love it. I used to say that about white women.
That's a powerful statement, because a middle-class, middle-aged white man, from my perception, often believes that he can fix anything and that he is king.
Absolutely, because I say that all the time. I'm like, when I get read, when I write a letter like a white woman, because no one can write a letter of a complaint like a white woman. She will say, "My name is Susan. I am shocked and appalled, and I demand change." And I frame all my letters like that. I always get what I need. So,
but I think that you have driven my point home, right? Yeah. Because you can turn into Susan, you can write it as Susan, and you're going to get some action.
Absolutely.
But my inherent, first of all, or number one, it just automatically, my Black woman just comes out of me, because I've got to go down the list of where you had me confused. And so
I know you didn't want to say confused. Be free.
I didn't. I'm
free.
I'm working on it, but Jesus help me. But I had to learn, and I know that the popular term for that is code switching. I've had to learn through my life how to code switch in corporate America and in different spaces that I'm in. But I shouldn't have to code switch in order to see the change that I want. I shouldn't have to.
And I think that's a point that we want to drive home, right? In addition to acknowledgement, that's why Black people that are telling me that I should be fine and pacified with acknowledgement, I'm not going to be, and I won't be. They have acknowledged it before. And then they tell us they're going to do some training. They're going to do sensitivity training. Can't even get it out. Over the last 5 years, almost every public brain you know of has made major announcements when they made a diversity and inclusion hire. We just want you to know that Coach has hired a diversity and inclusion. But you know what that does not do? You hiring somebody for diversity and inclusion, we're giving you a seat at the table, but you're not changing the system. So, and I'm not telling you what to do with your companies, because there's always a perception that white supremacy has put out there that Black people are always looking for handouts. But if you're asking a Black person what you can do to change the system, do not give us a seat at the table. Don't give me the table, but give me a position at the table that's already there. If you want to change the system, you're going to have to get up off of some of those seats. And you're going to have to get other voices in there to change it. The system is not going to change with you just giving us a seat, a diversity seat at the table. Like, that's not...
So you didn't like Alicia Keys getting that from BlackBerry back in the day? Oh, wait. And I'm just throwing out there. I'm driving home your point. I invited you here to use your good brain. I'm being facetious when I say.
Yeah, I know.
I really want people to hear us loud and clear, though, because Gerald, I agree with you. It is on me to educate, and educate I do. Let me be clear. I have no problems educating someone on when they are being loud and wrong, because I do have colleagues that are loud and wrong. So when you are loud and wrong, whether you are a celebrity, whether you are a colleague of mine, whether you are on Twitter, whether you are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, I don't really care what it is. It is on me to just help you understand. No, let me if I need to show you history. I saw on Twitter they were like, some Republicans are switching sides, saying they're not going to vote for Trump. I retweeted it and said, so did white women in 2016. I believe it when I see it. Like, put your money where your mouth is. Put your action where your mouth is. Some of these organizations and leadership haven't shown true leadership in generations.
Listen, do not give me a struggle video of you reading a statement like, and I am sorry, I believe that black lives matter. Don't give me that.
I don't want it.
Give me that. And actually, you can keep it if you don't mean it. Just let us change the system.
But Alex,
you don't even have to apologize to me. I don't want a fake apology. If you're still gonna be and I understand that it's embedded in so many people, like white people, and what I do, and I'm thankful. I will say that I'm not praising. I don't like we talked about that. I'm not praising white people for doing the right thing, but a number of white people have inboxed me and told me like their eyes are finally open, and I'm willing to talk to them and talk them through that. I really am. I can't do the work for them though. So the moment you tell me, my family has abandoned me, they're calling me a black lover. Well, you're listen. You're now experiencing just 1% of how racist your racist ass family is to us. So I'm not sorry that you're feeling that, and I don't feel like you're going through that. For me, I honestly think you getting away from those racist people is going to make you a better person, even if that is your mom. And that's just my personal belief, because I think that type of hatred ages you. And Kellyanne Conway is a great example of how being so hateful, it will show up in your face very, 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 very quickly. We have to keep going, but this is really good. I want to talk about Confederate monuments really quickly. And we tried to touch it yesterday, but we weren't really able to get there. There is a statue of Robert E. Lee that is erected in a state in this nation. A state that I don't frequent. I don't really need to go there. But people are up in arms. And then this is a conversation that white people, if there's anything that you can educate us on, it is why you believe. Because the Confederate Army, let's not miscategorize anything. The people that fought in the Confederate Army and the Confederates were not noble in any way. They weren't fighting for any types of freedoms. They were fighting to keep people like me, ownership over people like me, and rights. And but they were fighting for more than that. The fact that they were fighting.
Okay. Alex, so I literally just drove past something that looked like that 2 hours ago, right? And I know what state you're saying because that's where I'm from. That's where I live. It's Virginia, right? Has to be because it's always Virginia. I know where you're getting at, and I know that you're angry. And let me just say, take this moment because I feel like you need to hear this out of love. Like, to go ahead and be angry. Fuck what anybody else thinks. Like, if that's how you feel, like, I think you should do it. And if somebody finds you insufferable, that's something that they need to take up with themselves. Because honestly, in a world of technology, you can either decide to tune in or tune out. And I respect your right to do what you need to do. But with that said, a monument that I've known for years, grew up around, was taken off. And it was very interesting. And my friend in the car, she's like, well, what do you think about it? Because I had never seen it be taken down before now. And I told her, well, this is how it goes. Take it down. I'm not mad at that. But just in the way that we want our names spoken, speak their names. And not because I want them to remember because they need to be revered in history. But I do, now that I'm grown, I do believe about history repeating themselves. So take it down if you want to, but do not erase those names from history, because the way that technology and ages are going, as a former teacher, people don't want to learn. And if you don't speak their names, I'm afraid that we would end up worse off than where we would be because people are ignorant.
I think that's a valid and viable perspective. But the thing about these Confederate statues in America is that they have not always been there. They haven't been there since the Civil War. A number of them were erected during the Jim Crow era when this country was going through another bout of how racist can America be. Those statues were erected to show white power and white authority, and we're going to put these statues up because we revere this part of history. Now, I went to school with people, like I went to majority white schools for like most of my all middle school and high school. And I went to school with even mixed people who had white heritage that would wear Confederate flags. They would be flying from their pickup trucks. And me, the same Alex back then, would take the flag off. You know, maybe I should be vandalizing your property. I just don't want to see that. But he's like, well, my grandfather fought in the Confederate Army. Your grandfather was a treasonous and he was on the wrong side of history. And that's just really what he was. And your grandfather was a racist. And if he knew he had a black great, like, bro, you would have been in his fields. So let's not like try to erase what history was. When white people were raping black women and white men were raping black women and having black children, those black children weren't in the house. Some of them could be, but genes are strong and genes do different things. And even with a white daddy, you can have skin just like this. So all of these kids, I mean, let's just be clear. And we know that revisionist history is something that we struggle with in America. Like, we have to tell our own stories. And where I agree with you with saying names, I think that people need to know who Robert E. Lee is.
Absolutely.
You know, I would argue with you that probably 60% of graduates from 2020 that know who Cardi B is don't remember who Robert E. Lee is. They're probably going to be able to tell you who he was and what part of history. Like, I know the name, but I don't know, was he part of the World War I? Like, they just wouldn't know. And I think it's really important and y'all are laughing. Y'all know that these kids are dumb as hell.
Yes.
And
I'm a teacher. Yeah, of course.
I mean, people probably didn't know who Mary McLeod Bethune was until they saw Self-Made.
But you know what? Let's be real about that. And I was being very good because I know that you're angry. And Alex, like I said, your anger is something very great for me because you haven't had that outlet, and you needed this time, and it's great for you. But it's cool not to be smart. And the way that they have education structured, these poor babies don't have a chance. My 9-year-old, I try my best to teach them on my own. But with that said, in a time where education, how we grew up, where it was a thing, my question to you and Tiffany would be, in a time where people are angry, there are people like me, even though I grew up in the projects, I was always in the honor classes. I was always ahead, never knew what ahead really meant. But because I took German at 10 years old, because I always got A's or I was always accelerated, I was looked at different. So there are people who have been ostracized for a minute because of their intelligence or who they are, and they don't necessarily connect with people in their struggle and their thing. So what do you say to them? Because like I said, I relate to everybody, but that also was my struggle. Like, because I'm intelligent or because I like these things or I knew where I was going, that I was being white, or because I talk like this, I was white. But this is just
that is also the Black experience. And so I had been pondering on this, and I haven't even told the team yet. But what part of the conversation that, and I'll invite you back if you want to be a part of it again tomorrow, is there's two things about Black, right? I think people oftentimes are told, and I touched on this yesterday, like we were talking about how there's a lot of vocal people that feel like the Black Lives Matter movement is intentionally leaving out other groups, trans lives, LGBT lives. And my question back was, if one person from the movement says that, why is that everybody? I have always been of the fact that when people tell me that I'm not Black enough for this, or I don't feel Black enough for that, or people tell me that, like, I have multiple accents, right? But I do media. So I can turn this on, I can have the conversation. But when I'm lazy, I grew up in Atlanta and I was born in St. Louis. So I'm not going to try to explain to you what that sounds like, on some Hennessy. But just use that note. And so I tell people, and I used to tell little kids this, because especially when I worked with kids and they would tell me, well, he told me I wasn't Black. If you're Black and you do it, then Black people do that. And that's that. But we're going to continue this conversation tomorrow because there is a conversation to be had about the blacks that believe that they are exempt from the black experience, and the blacks that are told that they're not black enough. And I shouldn't have done that, but I have a third. And the blacks that are often fighting but left out of movements.
Oof. You should have done it.
We'll continue that conversation tomorrow. We got to wrap it. Gerald, thank you so much for being here. And you can just tell the people how to get in touch with you.
You know what? I don't actually even care if you guys get in touch with me. This is something I'm going to use this platform. I'm going to use a platform to say one quick thing. Black people, as we're doing this fight, do yourself a favor. When you are posting articles on any of your social media, do yourself a very safe fact and know where you're posting things from, because we post so many things that are not real and are actually detrimental because we only read headlines. So instead of me saying where I'm from, I implore you to read.
Thank you. Tiff Linnell.
On everything, Instagram, Twitter.com, Facebook. And if you experience voter suppression today, definitely hit me up and I will send you some resources that you can share your story and your experience. And I will continue to fight even beyond today.
And we're going to find some strategies so that we are not suppressed in the fall when it matters and we can go out and do these things. Listen, if you missed any part of this conversation, it continues tomorrow. What I want you to do for me right now, if you're watching live, you're watching a replay, or you're listening live, go to your app store and download the Boss FM app. I got my hoodie in the back. It's on the screen. It's in the app. It's in the Google Play Store. It's in the iPhone store. Download the Boss FM app. You can listen to Unmuted Nation, usually weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. You will hear this show again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be back here tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Okay? Actually, you know what? I'm making another knee-jerk reaction, and y'all drink some Red Bull. I'm not going to step on Oprah's toes tomorrow. We'll do it at 10. I'm going to watch her tomorrow and see what she says so I can talk about it. Unmuted Nation tomorrow night. Everybody's freaking out because I just did that live. 10 p.m. tomorrow. We'll be right here on Facebook. If you're in the Boss FM app, your programming continues right now. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter or wherever else, we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, remember, today is greater. Believe it, speak it, live it. Be black and be great.
We'll be right back.